This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. With 3 locations now, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday 9 to 7, and Sunday 12 to 5. They have a location downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. They just opened up a 3rd location at 167 East, 900 South, right next to Randy's Records. No appointment is necessary. Head on over to jedsbarbershop.com for more information.
Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people, making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Welcome to episode 281 of I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name's Chris Hollifield.
And I'm Chrissy Shelley.
Today on the podcast, we sit down with storyboard artist Adrian Ropp. Adrian Ropp has worked directly with well-known companies including Disney, Lucasfilm, Pixar, Marvel, Archie Comics, and MGM.
He has been around.
And he gives some great insight.
Oh, he really does.
On kind of how you can get to where he's at.
Yeah, if that's your goal, I love his point of view on things.
We're going to get into that conversation here in just a minute. Hey, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, take just a minute, hit that subscribe button in whatever podcast player that you're using. That way, week after week, as we introduce you to some of the most amazing people in Salt Lake City, you'll get the episodes sent right to you. The website you can go to find out more about the show is iamsaltlake.com. Hey, Salt Lake, are you in the market for a photographer? Check out AmandaKmemories.com. This is where you can check out all the photography of local photographer Amanda DeWolf.
She did our wedding pictures recently, and I was amazed because I am not photogenic, and she made us look good.
She knows how to get in there and make it happen.
She totally does. If you are awkward, like I'm really awkward, I don't know how to pose, I don't know how to do anything, and she made us look incredible. So no kidding. If you need family shots or headshots,
wedding pictures, she's seriously the person to go to. Again, that website is AmandaKmemories.com. We also put a banner up on our website. That way you can click right there and it'll send you on over to our website. So this upcoming Friday night, the 16th, that's June 16th, we're doing a live I Am Salt Lake podcast recording at Watchtower Cafe, which is located at 1588 South State Street. This is part of the Utah Podcast United Live Podcast Showcase, where there's actually going to be 4 podcasts total recording that evening, starting at about 5 o'clock. I Am Salt Lake podcast is the last one recording, and they said we'd be starting about 8 o'clock, so I know a lot of people get out of work and want to head on over there.
You'll have enough time to wander around and then come to our show.
It's a free event. Everyone is invited, all ages. Bring your kids, bring your family, bring your brothers and sisters. We'd love to meet you, hang out with you, and I'm sure we're going to open it up to audience questions.
Yeah, I'm sure.
This episode is also sponsored by Oleo Skin and Beard. If you're like us, your skin is dry, and if you're like me, your beard is dry, you need to moisturize. Oleo Skin and Beard carries an amazing line of skin oils, beard butters for moisturizing and shaping the beard, even some great facial cleansers.
They just came out with the new Make Yourself Rosy mask, which I just picked up. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm so stoked.
I'm eager for you to tell us what you thought of it.
Yes, me too. So I'm going to try that because I just picked it up. Going to try it out this week, let me know. And they just started making a vegan hair perfume.
We're going to have to get into that one as well.
Yeah.
I expect a full report.
Excellent.
Here in about a week.
Yes.
Again, their website, oleoskin.com. We have a promo code for I Am Salt Lake listeners. Just enter in I Am Salt Lake at checkout. When you go to their website, it's going to give you 25% off of your entire purchase. All right, let's jump into that conversation that we had with storyboard artist Adrian Ropp as he came over to our office to share his story. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy. Actually, here's a random question we're going to start with. What's your all-time favorite Disney movie?
Oh, that's easy.
Okay.
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
It's my very favorite movie
Good
of any
man.
time.
It is.
Like It's
not even Disney. It's your all-time favorite.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you do any of the art? Did you do any of the art with that one?
Just fan art.
Fan art.
I'm just.
What did you think of the new?
I liked it okay, but it just doesn't hold a candle to me to the original.
I don't think
I didn't think the objects, the enchanted objects, were as charming. And I thought it was fine. I didn't have any specific problem with it, but it just doesn't hold a candle for me.
I didn't even see the new one.
You know what? I haven't seen it yet either.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I've seen snippets. I've tried to see as much as I can.
It came out on Blu-ray yesterday.
Ooh, maybe we can rent it.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Because I do want to see it. Because
it feels respectful of the source material, but it's just not the same thing. Did you see the live action Cinderella?
Yes,
I felt like that was a better let's try something new adventure than Beauty and the Beast was.
I really liked that one.
What is the live action Cinderella? I am way out of the loop. A couple
years ago,
here.
they came out with a real life Cinderella.
Okay,
that was Disney's Cinderella, but it was
essentially
live
the
action,
story,
not
but
cartoon.
they changed it in a lot of ways. They made it be not a musical, and they just adapted a little ways, gave characters a little deeper.
It really did it. It brought a little more depth to all the characters, which was really cool.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it.
And we're gonna have a baby girl here in a few months, and I feel like I'm just gonna be like,
it is time for you to catch up, son.
Immersed in all of these.
You need to go see Wonder Woman right now.
Really?
Oh my gosh.
I've heard it's a fantastic movie, so no spoilers.
I was feeling the woman power on that movie, honestly. Seriously.
Hey, so you mentioned before we started recording you were from Idaho. Is that where you're from?
I'm from Idaho.
Born and raised?
Born and raised. My family's lived there since the pioneer days. They settled the town where I lived.
Where would you?
Blackfoot.
Blackfoot. So that's over by like Pocatello.
It's between Pocatello and Idaho Falls.
Grew up there your whole life?
Yep. My dad was a firefighter. My brother's a firefighter there at the same place. My mom works for the local doctor, and my sister's a nurse there.
So are you the only one from your family who's left the town?
I'm the black sheep, yeah. My sister actually lived...
I wouldn't say you're the black sheep.
They're all in the medical profession, and I draw and write. So I'm kind of like, we can save people's lives. It's cool that you draw, but, You
can draw cool pictures of them saving people's lives.
When they're in the hospital recovering, I can make them happy. I can just show them something that makes them feel something. But my sister lived a little bit in Utah and a little bit in Seattle, but mostly they're all my family's there. My parents live a block from my grandparents, and most of the neighborhood where I grew up is all my aunts and uncles. And so it was a very close-knit family there.
Do you ever kind of wish you were up there with them?
I mean, there's times like when I'm stuck in traffic for 45 minutes after work, or when there's times when I kind of would like a quieter space, but then when I'm up there, a lot of times it's really inconvenient to me how far I have to go to get something.
And that would be a heck of a commute from Blackfoot to Salt Lake. For
I don't think the 3.5 hour drive is worth it, honestly.
But it's close. It's not far. I lived out east in my family here in Utah. That made it tough to visit, but at least you're kind of close to home. Have you always been into art, like growing up your whole life, or what's the story there? You know what? I think I've always had kind of a creative personality. I really like storytelling. When I was 6 years old, my grandparents took me to see The Jungle Book, Disney's Jungle Book, the animated one. And I remember sitting in the theater and thinking, oh my gosh, that's what I want to do. I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that I wanted to do that for a living. You just wanted to make it? Yeah, like whatever it is that gives you that job, what you do in that job is what I want to do. The characters were so colorful and vibrant and lively, and they had these huge personalities, and it was so much fun, and I just remember having all these emotions around it. And from that day forward, as a 6-year-old, I've never once wanted to do anything else. Did you ever get interested in writing? Like, did you ever get a passion for... I did. That came a little later. I mean... Honestly, because of growing up in a tiny little farm town, there wasn't a lot of opportunities for developing my art other than just being self-taught. My grandparents were always really good at taking me to the bookstore in Idaho Falls and getting art books so that I could practice. I would take coloring books, and the blank inside cover page, I would just draw comic strips in them, and then erase them, and then draw more, and then erase them. So I would say I was probably pretty obsessed with the story angle of it. I don't think I was super aware of that until I was older. But I've always been really big into telling stories and entertaining people with my art. Now, did you take art lessons then as a kid? So the city I grew up in was Shelley. Okay. Until I was about in 6th grade. And Shelley is known for being the home of the Spud Harvest Festival.
in Idaho.
That sounds
Sounds
cool.
really
Yeah.
exciting.
So both Shelley and Blackfoot, where I grew up the rest of the time, they get out for 2 weeks every fall for spud harvest because so many of the kids
The
have to
schools
help.
all get out?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because a lot of the kids have to help with the harvest. And so during the spud harvest, I finally got to junior high in Shelley, and they finally had an art class, and I was so excited. And I did 2 weeks of that, and then we moved to Blackfoot during spud harvest. And then the school that we moved to was just like a really far out in the country, podunk little school. I love dearly, but they had limited resources. The electives we could take there were band or wood shop. And so I have no musical notes in my head at all. So I took wood shop. And so I didn't get any art until I was in 9th grade, as far as like formal training.
Were you drawing though as a kid? Like just, on paper or colors and stuff that?
Yeah, just like if I could get a hold of paper and anything to write with, I was just constantly drawing. My parents were so frustrated because I didn't ever want to go outside because I was just drawing and drawing and drawing. I used to take typing paper and make little comic books and photocopy them in the library and sell them to my friends at recess for 5 cents.
Did you just figure out how to do that on your own?
Yeah.
Because I
had to.
That's what I was going to say. Where did you gather inspiration from?
This must have been quite a few years ago, even before a lot of the internet.
Oh yeah, I didn't really have the internet in high school.
Yeah,
yeah. I graduated in '93, and that was kind of
okay. So a little while ago, and I mean,
there weren't many resources.
It was a passion.
You were a creative kid.
I had stories that I wanted to share with people, and I needed to share them. It's when you are a creator and a writer, I feel like you can't write it for yourself. It's not very rewarding. You want to put something out there to the world that people can respond to and have a reaction. And when you can't do that, it just bottles up and bottles up. So I had to find these ways that I could express myself. And so I figured out how to fold the paper just right so I could put little staples in the folded papers and everything. And I had kids that would ask me to draw them comics all the time. And selling them for 5 cents, I'm sure I lost all of my allowance money making the comics, but it was about sharing stories that I'd come up with.
So what? You started art in 9th grade, you said.
So I did have an art class finally.
Okay.
There. Yeah. The problem with that was that the teacher, anytime she sensed any sort of cartooning in my work, told me it was bad.
That was a no-no.
Really?
That's not art. And so
that's terrible.
I did letter in art. I took art classes every year, but I had a friend whose mom was the journalism teacher, and I got into the journalism class, and they let me have a comic strip in the school paper, and that was way more rewarding to me. And I got to
really
write
cool.
Movie reviews and little puff piece articles. I didn't really do anything hard hitting, but that turned out to be a better outlet for me because I think it satisfied both my cartooning love and my writing passion.
Well, and if you have an art teacher telling you that your version of art is wrong, that's a really crappy way to go through learning.
And I don't think she meant it that negatively.
Yeah.
I don't think she understood what she was doing to me though, because I was learning the fundamentals. I think she was afraid I wasn't learning the fundamentals of art, which is important. But I just lost my taste for it completely. And I just was like, well, I'll just do my own thing. Self-teaching has worked so far. So
yeah.
So what got you out of Idaho then? What
So
did you come from Idaho to Salt Lake, or is there some place in between you went to? Or
I felt like I needed when I graduated high school, I felt like I needed some sort of perspective shift so that I could have a bigger, deeper sense of the world. So I had an aunt and uncle that lived in another city with a college in it that was really known for its art. And so I moved to the giant mecca of St. George, Utah.
There we go.
Which was actually quite overwhelming for me because I'm like, this is a big place. And then looking back,
But did you used to come down to Salt Lake at all from when you were living?
I had aunts and uncles that lived here, so yeah, occasionally.
So I'm sure Salt
down.
Lake too was crazy.
Salt Lake was overwhelming to me, even when I moved back up here from St. George. It was overwhelming. But St. George, my aunt and uncle lived there, and they said I could live in their extra room. And they had a really good art program at Dixie College. They were friends with one of the instructors at Dixie College, so they kind of helped me get in the door there and everything. And it just so happened that the same week that I moved down to start school, there was an article in a paper that a former Don Bluth. I don't know if you guys know who Don Bluth is. He did like An American Tail and Land Before Time, Secret of NIMH.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Yep.
very familiar with those.
I think of Bluth's as Arrested Development now in this point in my life.
Yeah,
but
those are funny, by the way. Like, those are my favorite show. But Don Bluth was the director of all those films, and he was a former Disney animator. And I was obsessed with his movies because I was into that stuff. And they had an article in the paper the week I moved down or the week after that a former Bluth animator had moved back to St. George to live with his family and start his own studio.
Oh, wow.
Well, I stalked this guy. Like, immediately, I'm like, okay, this is his name. I found him in the phone book. I started sending him drawings and letters and stuff. And yeah,
that's awesome.
His name is Mark Swan. He's a really nice guy. We're good friends to this day. But he was crazy enough to actually call me and meet me in person. And when he realized how much passion I had for it, he did everything in his power to sort of mentor me. He let me come out to his house and use his pencil test machine. That's the thing he used to capture one frame at a time of pencil drawn animation. So I did a lot of old school stuff like that, and he'd give me advice. And
wow, and a lot of people don't get that kind of opportunity.
Oh,
but you know what? I don't think that it's that rare if you take the opportunity to find it. That's what I always tell students when I go talk at schools is, you need to find a mentor, and their response is, I don't know how to do that. And I didn't know how to do that.
So how would you recommend that now to find a mentor? Because I don't think you can always easily.
Conventions are an incredible thing to do. I think if you want to be in animation, there's a lot of things like CTN that's a big convention in California, comic conventions if you want to do comic book art. But you just have to find people that are like-minded and fit your personality. You can't go in there just hoping to manipulate them into a mentoring.
Yeah.
But you put yourself out there and say, hey, I'm really looking for advice or help, anything you can do to help me.
And it seems like experts in the field or people who are themselves passionate, when they see your passion, will really, it'll motivate them. And it probably is, you don't realize it when you're the what's the word for mentor on the other side? Mentee? Is that what it's called?
Mental?
Mental, definitely that. But I don't think you realize how much the mentor actually gets from it too.
That's very true.
I think you're giving them a good opportunity by asking them to mentor you.
It is a completely, I've started teaching people how to podcast. And when you sit back and you try to learn it with them, relearn a lot of the stuff and kind of see things from their angle, it's almost like you're learning a completely new skill.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I can imagine it's the same thing with art. So you were working, what was the guy's name?
His name is Mark Swan, and he had a little outfit called Swan Animation. And we were going to do this video game that had hand-drawn animation in it with a studio in St. George called Strata. And so they told him he could hire somebody as his assistant. So he hired me because he knew me and I'd been bugging him a lot.
There you go.
Amazing opportunity. 2 months into it, they canceled the project. Aww. But I had worked my butt off for those people until that point, and they decided to put me on another thing they were working on. So I got to keep a job. And Mark actually went out and was looking for funding to make a feature film. And so I had it for a year and a half or so. I had a nice job learning the video game industry and doing storyboards and things for them while Mark was looking for funding. And he finally got funding for an animated film and immediately hired me to be his assistant on that. And I worked with him on that for about 8 years. The film was called The Princess and the Pea, and it never really saw a big wide release, but it was kind of a fun little musical.
But you worked on that for 8 years?
Yeah.
And were you going to college during all of this?
So interestingly, and I never recommend this to people, but I was so busy with these jobs that I had to quit college.
Yeah.
So did you ever finish college?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I was in the same boat. I had so much work that I had to quit college. Well, don't do it, kids.
Yeah. And I mean, in most industries too, that would be a really bad idea. But
right.
I have to look at it this way. I was working, doing the thing that I wanted to do. And he had all these other Disney and Don Bluth artists that would come in and do scenes at his studio from time to time. And I would get a chance to show them my work, and they'd give me advice. And like, I remember when they were making Emperor's New Groove, you guys probably know that.
Sure, yeah.
One of the animators, Jared Beckstrand, came down to do some sequences for Princess and the Pea, and he brought the animation from that with him to work on. And so I got to watch over his shoulder.
That's so cool.
And I became really good friends with another artist who's unfortunately passed away, Rick Estrada. who worked on like the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons like Wacky Races and
gosh, I love those.
Smurfs and He-Man.
Oh man.
And then he also drew comics for DC Comics a lot. So he was a mentor to me too, and he would just show me all these other things. So when I was looking at the education I was getting at the studio and what that was going to mean to my future employers, there was no question that was going to have more value in the job search.
Oh, absolutely.
Than
and
the
it's
college.
probably a much better education because you're really learning, like you're learning the skills that you need to do the job, but you're also learning the job.
Yes.
As opposed to just learning how to draw.
Because a lot of kids do get out of college and they think I have this book part of it and they can just apply it, and you can't. It's a whole other part of it. So
yeah,
I was really lucky that way.
And you were still living in St. George at this time, right? Working down there for the 8 years. What happened after 8 years of working with?
So after that film came out, it didn't make a lot of money, and we started doing pre-production work on another film, The Emperor and the Nightingale, and I did probably about 6 months on that, where my whole job was to just take pieces of paper and draw visual gags, like comedy stuff, and just throw it up there, and like maybe we can put this in the movie.
And would this be like for 8 hours in a day, right?
Oh,
or
yeah,
10 hours?
I just sit in my office with my music on. I listen to soundtracks constantly, and I would just
that's right.
That's what I do.
Oh
that's right up Chris.
We have to talk.
We totally have to talk.
And I just pin up. I had a room about this size. Nobody can see the size of this room. It's huge. This room is ginormous. And I would just
not
pin.
that big.
It's a castle. What are you
don't break
talking
the
about?
illusion. I would just pin on bulletin boards. The whole room would just be covered with these gag ideas. And then Mark and the other main guys would come in, and I'd just pitch things to them.
So you'd be in there all by yourself all day? Or did you?
Yeah, for about 6 of the 8 hours. And then the other 2 hours was them coming in and telling me, this is rotten. This has promise. This is great.
Did that get lonely?
You know, when I'm in that mode, it's not, because I'm super focused. I love to collaborate, but that part of the job wasn't really a collaboration job. It was think tanking a lot and then bringing it to a bigger group. Once we got to the bigger group, I loved that part too, was showing them everything.
But you were in your space, and that was like where you were the most.
The zone.
Gosh, that is, not a lot of people can get to that point.
I mean, I got to do everything in that job. There was a sequence on The Princess and the Pea that they needed to give to another studio, and everybody was behind. So they actually let me, even though I had no film experience whatsoever, they let me storyboard and direct that sequence with the other studio, which was amazing for me.
Oh,
I
that's
think
such great
because
experience.
the studio was really talented animators. I think it ended up being the best sequence too, but that wasn't because of me. I just was lucky. So I worked a lot on that, and then they canceled that, and then they started development on a feature called The Velveteen Rabbit. They decided they didn't want to work with Swan Animation on that one, and things weren't working out. There's a lot of politics and whatever. They closed down the studio, and they actually asked me if I'd come up here and run part of the division up here at the company's feature films for families. And some people
on our own.
Yeah. So they had an animation
and
studio for about 12 years.
Are they still around, feature films?
Sort of, yeah.
Man, what cartoons have they put out? Because I know the name.
Well, cartoon-wise, there's Princess and the Pea and Velveteen Rabbit, and then I also directed a 13-episode TV series called Pigtails.
I had the Velveteen Rabbit as I remember my mom got it.
Mine is the one I did is on Netflix, and it's a live-action with animation.
Is it still on Netflix?
I think so.
Okay,
yeah.
So the
live action was directed by Michael Landon Jr., and then I did the animation sequences for that. So I worked there for a few more years. I mean.
And that brought you to Salt Lake.
Yeah, they moved me up here so that I ended up being their animation producer and director for a number of years. I used to fly to Budapest, where their main animation studio was, so I could direct guys.
That is like a crazy journey.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was a lot heavier than I am now, and literally it was a crazy journey because I always had like a middle seat on this 13-hour flight to Budapest. It was not my favorite,
but you were living the dream, man.
I was. I felt like I was telling stories, but the audience was so small, and they didn't really understand how to distribute a film or put it to a wider audience. And so that became very frustrating to me. And one of the guys that I worked with up here actually got a job at Disney Interactive, and then he recommended me. So I went over there about 4 years after I moved up here. And I was...
what were you doing with them?
So I was a senior story artist, which means... in the game industry, that means I was writing dialogue, doing storyboards for the movie sequences between the gameplay, directing the voice actors. I got to, we could talk about that, but I got to work with some incredible talent. Like
name one.
Okay, so I did the Force Awakens playset for Disney Infinity. I got to work with Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Adam Driver, and Oscar Isaacs.
Wow.
All four of them did their voices, so I got to voice direct them.
Like in person. I mean, you were...
most times I do it on the phone because it's not worth it, but sometimes I did it in person.
Yeah.
Larry the Cable Guy, the voice of Mater, I got to work with him a bunch of times. He's amazing. He's the nicest guy ever.
Wasn't because we had Thomas Estrada. I think he was talking about Larry the Cable Guy. Maybe
was he?
Once I went to Disney, Thomas started at Disney. At Disney Interactive about a month before I did. Okay. So our journey there is fairly similar. He was an animator and I was a story artist. And so recently, about a year and a half ago, I became the head of the story department. And right after that happened, Disney decided they didn't want to make video games anymore. Essentially what happened was Disney Infinity was actually the top selling game in its market.
Yeah.
But they felt like they could invest the money somewhere else and get a higher percentage return, and it would just be better to license their games out to other people. So they closed this down. Warner Brothers saw that we had a really good product and a really good team. And I want to footnote this. If Walt were alive, Walt would have invested in the people, not the product. And I think that's what Warner Brothers did for us. They invested in the people and not a product. They saw the team
and they're like, we need those guys.
That's an investment.
Yeah.
You can't invest in a product if the people behind it are worthless. But you can invest in people and make good product.
Because that's who you're working with now is Warner Brothers.
So they actually made a deal with Disney. They purchased our little satellite studio is called Avalanche. They purchased that from Disney and made a deal with us to do a racing game for Cars 3, which is coming out next week.
Oh,
so just so that we could have a product to work on before we move on to our next big thing.
Really important question though for like parents.
Yes.
Are they still going to make Disney Infinity games? And or little characters.
Maybe he can't talk about that, Chrissy.
Man.
Parents at home, please cover your children's ears. No.
Oh, really?
I have had my nephew was the biggest Infinity fan, and he when they canceled the game, he said, "I'm so sorry about your job. Do you think somebody else can make Infinity though?"
See, that's kind of what I was thinking too.
Literally the tears and the upset faces that I've seen as a result of that. That product was sort of a cultural phenomenon.
It really was.
I don't think I'll ever work on anything that is that much of a lightning in the bottle, you know?
Yeah.
And people do this, there's figures that somebody got that were manufactured but never released, like Peter Pan. Right now, somebody just sent me a text today. One of them is selling on eBay for $3,300. Wow. It doesn't even work with the game.
Yeah, it's just a collector's item at this point.
We were speaking to these people at Disney that loved the characters and they loved the franchises, and they knew that we were doing right by them. The things we were doing with the game were making them love the things. They remembered the things they loved about those characters.
Yeah.
And that was super important to us.
Yeah.
We were just getting ready to do things like Jiminy Cricket, and we had a Goofy character coming. We were putting a Steamboat Willie gameplay thing in there with the black and white Mickey Mouse cartoon.
We need to actually take a quick break for a message from our sponsor. But so we'll play that, and then we'll come back. We got some more questions for Adrian, so hang tight. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. With 3 locations now, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday 9 to 7, and Sunday 12 to 5. They have a location downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. They just opened up a 3rd location at 167 East, 900 South, right next to Randy's Records. No appointment is necessary. Head on over to jedsbarbershop.com for more information. You mentioned Cars 3? Is that the video game?
That's the one that's coming out next week.
What is that one of the, like, what are some of the most recent projects that you've been working on that you care to talk about?
In the video game industry, like the things I'm probably known for is the Star Wars product for Disney Infinity. I did the Force Awakens playset. I helped sort of manage franchise-wise for the original trilogy playset and the prequel trilogy playset. I got to meet a lot of guys at Lucasfilm that are now my good friends, which is kind of cool. I worked on Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, a little bit on Spider-Man, Incredibles, Monsters University, Cars 2, Toy Story. What else?
Just all the good stuff.
Finding Dory.
I mean, I was looking online here. I mean, you've got a heck of a resume.
I've had such a charmed life. I feel like Forrest Gump a lot of times. I'm like, somebody's letting me do something with Mr. Incredible.
And you realize this, right? You realize this every day. Do you ever dread going to work? Honestly, or don't you want to say that in case?
Not on the days where I'm actually doing things that are creative. Jobs are jobs. Sometimes there's not.
No matter what, you're going to have days where you're
For example,
bored.
the day they shut us down, that wasn't a fun day for me, But when I go in and I have a chance to write dialogue from Mickey Mouse or some of the cool things that I'm working on now that you guys aren't even going to know about for several years, I don't think I've ever lost that. I'm not starstruck anymore, but I haven't lost the appreciation for what it means to take something that's in pop culture that people are really fond of. It's very beloved, and protect it and add something to that.
Yeah.
It's so important to me that I shield that from being destroyed somehow by like doing something wrong with it that doesn't feel right.
That's actually a really important job, especially to us, adults who grew up with all those characters.
Yes.
When someone in your position doesn't care as much as you do and they go and ruin the character, it's probably one of the worst things that we have to deal with in the first world.
It's a value drop for what you think about the original thing.
Yeah.
Pixar used to say, like, is this a value add or a value subtract whenever we would come up with an idea for a new story. And that was the litmus bar. I got to work with all the Pixar story guys and stuff too. So I learned a lot of lessons from them on how to protect things.
Was it tough when you had to switch to like computer animation? Was that tough for you?
Oh, I didn't get to this part of the story. I skipped right over.
No,
about 6 weeks into working for Mark Swan on The Princess and the Pea, he started talking to me because I wanted to be an animator and I was doing all this practice animating and stuff and life drawing and he started talking to me about storyboard artists. He's like, you like to write so much and you know how to stage things correctly. Are you sure like animation is what you want to do? You might be better off as a storyboard artist. And so he explained to me what that job entailed, and it was exactly what I was looking for. So I kind of veered off track of actually animating and turned into a story artist.
Okay.
Was that kind of the first time you realized that existed as a job?
I mean, I guess I was sort of aware of it, but but that was my epiphany moment. Like, oh, that's exactly the thing I wanted to be doing. You go back to when I was talking about watching Jungle Book when I was little. The animators did a really great job animating those characters, but there was a story artist that wrote those lines and staged the shots and came up with all the funny business that happened and then gave that to the animator. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm really self-obsessed or have a God complex, but that's the job where you get to decide all the cool stuff.
Yeah.
You're the director versus the animator being an actor. And it really appealed to me a lot. So, I do a lot of comic book work now that I'm happy to talk about too. And I think that was a natural progression from storyboards to comics. And I get the same thrill out of it doing that.
We have a Facebook group for I Am Salt Lake, and we mentioned that we're going to be chatting with you. There was a couple of questions that people asked. So I was gonna read them here really quickly before we forgot. Matt Gwynn, he's a listener. He asked, and we kind of touched a little bit on this earlier, I think, but I want to make sure to ask his question. It says, what career pathway would Adrian recommend to become an artist animator in order to become involved with large organizations like those mentioned above? I mentioned, that you were with Disney, Lucasfilm, Pixar, Marvel, so on and so forth. I don't know if you understand his question.
Yeah, I do, because I've had the same question in my life before.
Sure.
I had a lot of frustration in my early career because I was working for these smaller organizations, and the dream was always like, I want to work at Disney. I want to work at Disney. It was really cool when I got that job, and it really sucked when I lost it because my whole life I'd been like, I'm going to be a Disney artist. That's what I want to do. It's been really good and healing for me to look at it a different way, and that's what I've encouraged a lot of younger artists to do. Don't look at the name brand of what you want to do. Look at the skill of what you want to do. The name brand will follow if you're good. If you're so obsessed with working at Disney, you will miss out on, Universal Studios was hiring people on a really cool project and you just missed out on it because you only want to work for Disney. So that being said, like, make sure that you're not trying to brand yourself to a studio. You're trying to brand yourself as an artist who's really good that people want to hire. The path to take is to draw as much as you can, learn as much as you can, watch as many good films as you possibly can, analyze everything. Analytics are so important. An animator who just thinks, this guy scratches his nose, it's lifeless. You have to think, okay, does this guy just casually do it? Is he really annoyed when his nose itches? You need to understand and analyze each moment of your acting. And so between life drawing, just reading as much as you can, watching films, being analytical, talk to whoever you can talk to. Whenever you find an opportunity to learn something, learn it. And I know that's a really vague thing to say, but there's no one path.
Sure. Everybody's got a different.
You just start looking for opportunities and you'll find them. I always like with my career to feel like I know 3 steps ahead of where I want, like I know 3 steps from now where I want to be. And so when I see opportunities arise, they might not be the same thing I was expecting, but I can look at it and say, oh no, yeah, that will get me to the 3rd step. I think this is a good idea. So that's my big thing. Just don't give up and just be persistent.
Another question here from listener Thomas here. He says he'd like to ask Adrian what it's like working with hacks such as Thomas Estrada, and does he feel that this association diminishes his own credibility as a professional artist?
Absolutely. It's the worst. Do not cut this out of the podcast.
when Thomas Estrada responded there, I was like, okay, I gotta bring this up.
Yeah, when he told me, I'm like, we are asking that. That is happening.
I actually have a really fun story about working with Thomas.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's actually my single favorite moment of my entire career. And I've gotten choked up talking about it before enough times now that hopefully I won't now. When we were working on the Star Wars Force Awakens playset, we had to do a cinematic for the end of the game. Well, you guys might remember that you shouldn't spoil the end of that movie. So I was one of maybe 5 people out of 200 at our studio that knew the entire plot of the movie. And I asked Thomas to storyboard it. And so I had to tell him what happens. And we had this really cool thing where I would storyboard something and he would riff on it with animation and say, like, what about this idea? And he filmed a lot of live action reference and we went back and forth so much. It was just thrilling. So what we got to do was the lightsaber duel between Rey and Kylo Ren on the snow planet at the end. Well, Lucasfilm hadn't filmed it yet when we had to start working on it, and they didn't have any reference for us. So they said to me, come up with something and we'll tell you if it's right. They didn't change a frame of what I storyboarded. They went for it, and we got this cool alternate version of the lightsaber duel. And it's one of the sequences that I'm most proud of. And it's a lot to do with the artistry of the actual product, but it's mostly to do with the fact that Thomas was such a giving and present collaborator. Everything just fired on all cylinders. So that's what I'm always looking for in life. He is a hack, but in that one moment,
he's a fun guy. We got to find out his story and learn about him, bringing him on this podcast. But I couldn't imagine what it'd be like getting to work with him on a regular basis.
He's one of my
Seems
best
like
friends.
You'd stay entertained.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of extra perks working? Like, do you make it down to Disneyland in California?
When I worked for Disney, I got into Disneyland free.
Yeah.
It was really tough to lose that benefit.
Yeah. Were you just going down there a lot, down to California?
Usually like twice a year, we'd go down for 5 days at a time.
You've never been to Disneyland,
I've
have
never
you?
been to Disneyland.
I got to take
I've
Chrissy.
been to Disney World when I was 5.
That's okay.
And there's a great story.
Okay.
I wanted to meet all the princesses. So I would hide and wait for my family to walk away so that I could escape and go meet all the princesses.
Oh, nice.
And it happened. I did it. Then they took me to the police station. So everyone found me at the police station. But I did get to meet all the princesses.
That's awesome.
Still no Disneyland though.
You're going to get down there.
Yeah, I want to take.
You're going to have a little princess. And
yeah,
That's
we'll have
right.
to take the new. And then she has 3 children from a previous marriage.
Who still need to go to Disneyland.
Take down to Disneyland.
But then every time, that is the greatest bonus. Like, we should all be able to work for Disney for at least a year out of our lives so we can afford to go to Disneyland.
No, it's the worst because losing that is so much worse than never having it in the first place.
Oh.
Because don't know what you got till it's gone, No, it's cool. And, I got good discounts on stuff. But I have this really sort of, I don't want to say bitter. It's kind of a rough thing, the decision they made for me, because I don't think it was a good decision. But it did not affect my love for the legacy of Disney and the things that I always cared about. So I can go to Disneyland and still have tons of fun and enjoy it. And you should go there too. So soon you should go. Next year, Star Wars Land opens. Then you have no excuses left.
Oh, that's
You have to go.
That's true.
What I always like asking artists and creators and stuff, this question is, what motivates you when you don't feel like creating? Do you have, because I'm sure you hit those spots, right, where you just don't feel like it. Do you have something that you do, or is there something that motivates you?
Yeah, there's a few things I do. I watch movies a lot if I'm not motivated, just to see if something sparks. No, not often does that actually work, but I think you have to take a break from it, because when you're trying too hard to be creative and it's not coming, pushing as hard as you can is not going to do anything. I have like a lot of drawing prompt books where it just has a word on the page and then you have to draw like porcupine. And so you draw a porcupine and it just gets your mind kind of flushed and reset. Sometimes if I'm trying to figure out what to do with a character and I can't figure out the right line of dialogue or how to go with a sequence, I'll write a backstory for the character. What was this character like when he was in kindergarten? And if there's an arch nemesis involved with this character, he was in the same kindergarten class. And I just write some dopey, nobody's ever going to see story. And it usually clears out the cobwebs doing something like that. I feel like the only thing you can't do is force it. That just never seems to work for me.
I like that.
Yeah, I like how you look at it from different angles. I think that's
you
actually...
have to, because the one
really
angle is
tricky,
not
though.
working,
Yeah.
So
That's hard to do.
it is. Yeah.
I was looking on your website here. Is it Chim Chum? Right?
Chim Chum, yeah.
And it looks like you're heavily involved with a lot of the Comic-Cons. Do you still?
Yeah,
Are you still
yeah.
travel? Do you still travel around? And
I do a
and
bit. It depends on my other schedule because the day job's more important, obviously. But
and then that's to kind of push your own stuff, right? When you do the Comic-Cons.
yeah, that's kind of my outlet if I want to do so. So I have a web comic, Chim Chum and the Portly Samurai. That's why it's called chimchum.com. And
It's a really cute comic.
Oh, thank you.
I like
thank
it.
you. And then I've done some work for Archie Comics, and I'm currently working on Underdog, Pink Panther, Rocky and Bullwinkle.
And who are those?
Casper the
so
Friendly Ghost.
Archie, that's not Warner Brothers.
No, this is just my side stuff. This is just what I do for fun on the side. So,
but it's with the legit Archie, right?
Yeah. Archie Comics.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
Gosh.
So what I do for them is I design jokes for their covers. And then my friend Bill Galvin usually pencils the cover. He lives here locally as well. You guys would love to have him on your show.
Yeah, we'll have to. We'll have to bring him on.
He's
on
worked
the podcast.
He's worked for Archie for years and years. But I befriended him at a Comic-Con, and he kind of vouched for me to get me a little work there, and it's turned into all this cool comic book work on the side. And I mean, I love Underdog and Pink Panther, and Casper the Friendly Ghost. It's another like, I can't believe somebody's letting me do this, but it's so much fun. And I have that same attitude of, if I hand this to a kid, I want them to feel like that was their version of the character. I don't want them to feel like somebody's rebooted my favorite character and made it something it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So, and the company that I do these comics for mostly is American Mythology, and that's kind of their operating procedures to give you the classic versions of the characters. So that's been a blast.
So when you go to the Comic-Cons, are you selling any of the art, or is it more
I sell my original art. I sell prints of my art.
Okay.
I sell copies of the comics. I take commissions. I have Denver Comic-Con coming up in the last week of June.
Okay.
Here. That's the next big one. But yeah, just a little bit of everything. I have a Patreon page. Do you guys know Patreon?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We do
Very familiar.
Patreon with this podcast.
And I send out like
great.
art postcards every month to my subscribers. And
I need to get on your Patreon.
Yeah, you check it out at least.
Yeah.
We just start, that's how we'll decorate the baby's room.
Yeah.
We'll just start putting those on the wall.
I've got a lot of stuff you can choose from. So yeah. So I just have a lot of fun with it. But I do mostly local conventions. I did one in Virginia last year just because my publisher got me a spot there.
Do you have a favorite one, a favorite convention?
I'm going to say it's Salt Lake Comic-Con because it's local.
You don't have to say.
But I have to say the craziest, most fun one I ever have is Denver.
Why is that?
Because they have been in the comic book culture for a lot longer than the Salt Lake people have. And they have some lighter restrictions on certain medicinal plants.
Ah, yes.
And so they tend to be really friendly and art loving.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
really
have that.
open to
I've
your
heard
art.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
That I do really well, and I have a lot of great friends in Denver. The first time I did a convention in Denver, it was a really tiny one that I just did because it was a charity for the victims of the Aurora theater shooting. And I made so many great artist friends there, and they just embraced me and took me into their fold and like made sure that I was taken care of and got into conventions and things. So I have a deep love in my heart for the Denver folks.
So what do you think of like Salt Lake City, the nerd scene, the geek
culture
scene,
now
the geek
that has
culture, I
risen?
guess.
Yeah.
What is the correct terminology?
I would say it's geek culture.
Okay,
Technically,
I mean,
that's right.
Yeah,
what do you think? I mean, because it seems like the Comic-Cons here have kind of blowing up.
So I think there's a lot of Comic-Cons that are really for comic book fans, and they have a really good comic book community. I don't think that's us. I think we have an area of people that were so underserved by feeling okay to express their love of different pop culture that it just immediately addressed a concern.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at like sometimes Doctor Who is just all over the Comic-Cons, or
Yeah.
it just changes all the time, but it's a pop culture con more than anything. They're really good to have comic book creators like myself and, some of the other guys they bring in, but I don't think they're ever the main draw here.
Yeah.
I think it's the celebrities. But
It's more of an expression that people are finally allowed to nerd out about something.
it's the idea of like, I get to go somewhere dressed up the craziest way I want to show people that I love something, and people aren't going to judge me for it.
Do you dress
Yeah.
up and all that?
No.
No?
Oh, you should.
I have like maybe 3 options available to me, including like Uncle Fester and Curly from the Three Stooges. I don't think I can. No.
You could do it.
You just gotta get
I've only
creative.
been to the Salt Lake Comic-Con, and I'm always I'm like, gosh, one of these times I need to dress up. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
but I
agree.
don't have a lot of options either with a beard.
I know.
I feel like
I was
unless
like
I was some
throwing out
wizard.
things. Yeah, it's always a wizard. I'm like, you could be Gandalf
Yeah.
Or Dumbledore.
or Dumbledore.
You could be any, a lot of
Any
people just
wise
make up
wizard.
their own character. They
Sure.
say like, I'm this character from this universe, or, whatever.
That
Like,
would actually be kind of fun
yeah.
because you really get to be creative and express yourself.
I mean,
more.
and my wife likes to come with me, and I'm sure if I dressed up, she totally would dress up too. But
Is she pretty supportive of all this?
Oh, absolutely. She's my biggest supporter. Like,
Yeah.
I would not be able to do what I do. She's had to sacrifice a lot in her life in order for me to follow my dream.
Yeah.
And every day I'm thankful for that. I have the best cheerleader in the whole world.
At what point did you guys meet? Were you already working?
We happened to
in
be living in
animation?
the same condo complex in St. George.
Okay, so
way.
Yeah.
quite a while back.
Yeah.
Well, you said 20 years.
20 years.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
That is awesome.
She's the first girl I ever met that I caught whistling theme music from Lady and the Tramp. I'm like, are you whistling soundtrack music? And she's like, yeah. And she's, I had to
I'd
keep
marry her too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you understand.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally get it.
But she's just the love of my life, and she inspires everything I do, and I always want to do better because of her. And so there's nothing I feel like I've accomplished that isn't at least in part due to her support.
And you say you bring her along to some of the Comic-Cons.
When I can.
Yeah.
She has some disabilities, so she's not able to go to the out of town ones with me as
Yeah.
much. But when we do the Salt Lake one,
That's
I'm always
awesome, though.
got her
That's
here.
awesome.
Yeah.
Not a lot of couples can say that. That's one thing I love about Chrissy.
Yeah.
She's very supportive of a lot of my crazy ideas.
I thought you meant you can go to Comic-Con together.
Well, yeah.
I'm kind of stuck in one mode
we
right
can
now.
go to Comic-Con, and then,
Totally.
the kids love Comic-Con. And besides comic books and art and all that, do you have any other hobbies and interests, things you enjoy?
There's other things other than those.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's not. Maybe that really consumes
nothing
your life.
worthwhile.
We talked a little bit before we started. I love Yellowstone. I love nature. I'm not a big hiker, but I love animals. I'm actually very passionate about animal
Like
rights
wild
and
animals?
things. Wild animals.
Do you
I
get
love.
close
Oh
to
my gosh.
them?
No. I'm not crazy.
I don't know. Maybe you really think
grizzly
they're neat.
bear. Just
I'm happy.
Wanna hug.
I'm happy if I can stop my car in the middle of a bison herd and just take pictures from out of my window, but just enjoying the beauty of nature. We have all these gifts that are in the world, and I think people take them for granted a lot. So this is why I'm so big into animal rights. I support a lot of shelters and things like that. But animals were put on this earth for many things, including showing us some of the beauties of the world and being companions. And so I love that kind of stuff. I love hanging out with my wife and just watching movies. I play games a lot. Not any hardcore kind of games, but
like video games, stuff like that.
Yeah, Nintendo kind of stuff. I don't do a lot of, like, the guys at work would throw me under a bus if they knew I was saying I was a gamer and I'm playing, Zelda and Mario. But,
You have to have like a love and appreciation for the originals,
Oh yeah,
to continue in the gaming market, I would say.
Yes.
So just tell them to just bite the wall.
They'll chill out. They're good guys. But I love to listen to soundtracks. I'm a huge.
What's your favorite soundtrack?
Oh my god!
Or a couple of your favorite soundtracks. I want to see if you and Chrissy connect here.
So I have favorite composers, and it's hard to narrow it down beyond that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, but one of them that I've been listening to a lot lately that I hadn't listened to for quite a while is Stardust.
You know what? I've never listened to that one, but I love the
should.
movie.
I love that movie too. I felt like that's the new Princess Bride.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a really good Yeah, it totally is.
That's how I got people to go see it, because nobody was going to see it. Stardust. The Wonder Woman soundtrack is amazing, so I've been listening to that a lot. The Guardians to the one with the actual songs. I've been digging that one a lot. Their Volume 2 mix has been really great. But I love Hans Zimmer. I love Patrick Debney. There's a lot of good stuff. James Newton Howard. I used to like James Horner until I realized that he was pretty much the same soundtrack every time. But anyway, I'm obsessed with soundtracks. We could talk afterwards. I'm sure, like most.
Well, they're so motivating for some reason.
Yeah. Well, when I'm writing or drawing, I can say like, okay, this guy, he's going to be like the thing I need to.
Yeah, when you want to
now.
get yourself in some kind of mode too.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'll put on just the Dark Knight soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
Just like feel invincible.
The worst thing to do is the Danny Elfman Batman soundtrack when you're driving, though, because you start like lead foot completely.
Then you think you're never going to die. And
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want behind
and you
the
can
wheel.
shoot flames out of the front of your car. Yeah. Music's so powerful. I feel like it's part of the storytelling. Whenever I do storyboards and I present them in an animatic, which is a video version that goes storyboard by storyboard to show out paces, I always try to pick a really good song sequence or a mix of songs to go with it, because it telegraphs to people the emotion that you hope it has when it's actually animated.
So you must really like Fantasia.
Yeah.
That's a good, I love how when that came out,
The
when I was a
artistry
kid,
of it
I
is
was
really
just
cool.
like,
Oh yeah, the artistry of
this
that,
is
I'll
the
even
best thing
admit,
I've
it's
ever seen.
amazing.
But
I
how
would
they did
say-
it to the music just was like,
Fantasia is a piece of like a beautiful piece of art, and I think Fantasia 2000 is more rewatchable because all of the segments are they're story driven, and a lot of the original Fantasia is very abstract.
I don't know if I ever saw Fantasia 2000.
You should see it. It's
Okay,
really good.
okay.
Yeah, it has, but all of
I
them
think
are
I was afraid it would
story-based.
change it up too much. Like,
So they actually included a couple of sequences from Fantasia in Fantasia 2000, but it's all the our generation's animators doing some cool stuff.
That's
you gotta
really
check it
cool.
out. I think you'd like it.
okay, I'm down. I trust your opinion now. So it's good.
If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Oh, I've always wanted to go to Australia. I don't know if that'll ever happen for me, but I don't know why.
Just kind of in the back of your head.
I think it's that animal thing again. They have
Yeah.
the weirdest animals there.
Australia
They
would be
really
cool.
do.
It would be cool.
It
to
would
go.
be.
Yeah.
Is that what you think you would do when you got there? Is kind of try to go see all the
totally.
animals
Yeah.
first thing?
I was obsessed
Would you
with
eat-
Steve Irwin,
I
the
was gonna
Crocodile
say
Hunter, when he was
Nutella.
alive.
Vegemite. You'd have to eat
No,
Vegemite.
I've tried Vegemite. No thanks. Yeah. I had a friend come back with some, and I'm like, well, let's see what it's all about. And
You think it's going to be delicious.
Take a
Looking at it,
spoonful
Yeah.
of it.
just not. It's not.
it made me very distrusting of jam. I don't know if this is going to be okay anymore.
It just made me distrusting of Australians.
Yeah.
Like, you made that look delicious and it's not.
Yeah, I don't know why but yeah, I'd love to go there. Of all the places I've never been, that seems like my top choice.
Let's say somebody was visiting Salt Lake City for a day or two.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something you would say you have to check this out, or you have to do that, if they've never been here?
Boy, that's a tough one. I mean, obviously the LDS church stuff is very
Sure.
local, and I think that's pretty cool for everybody to see.
Absolutely.
Beyond that, something that I just discovered that's like 3 blocks from my house and I'd never been to before was the Loveland Aquarium.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I've heard
my
that's really cool.
Gosh, it's amazing. It's like multi-levels. They have a shark tunnel. There's like every
What?
type of seahorse. I've never seen a seahorse up close. I mean, I could have
Gotta
just
take
watched
the
that
kids
forever.
there.
I know.
It's
I've been
so-
It's
meaning
called
to.
Loveland.
Well, is it the Loveland
It's right
Aquarium?
right off I-15.
Is that the name of it? Yeah, right by
Yeah,
IKEA.
It's huge.
It is.
It's a huge
There's
building.
penguins there, right?
There's penguins, which are my favorite animal.
Oh, penguins
They
are
have
amazing.
otters. They have a huge otter exhibit. It's
Really?
amazing.
Is it open year round?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah. They have
okay.
snow
Screw the
leopards.
kids. Let's just go.
Yeah, it's expensive. You don't want to take the kids,
Yeah.
But I keep telling everybody, like, if you're coming through Salt Lake and you want to go to the aquarium, let us know. We'll go with you. I'm so ready to go back already.
Well, we'll have to look you up when we're ready to go.
Yeah, you should. I actually have a friend of mine's wife works there, and I should have told her that I wanted to go there, but I just paid like an idiot.
Oh.
But it's totally worth it. Yeah, it's a pretty cool place, and I like it because it's an unexpected Utah thing.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of like the Red Rock and the skiing and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really have to tell people too much because they
They already
that from
know
the
about
tourism.
it. Yeah. But that's what I like to find out about people on the podcast is just little hidden gems like the aquarium. I don't think anyone's ever brought that up
I don't think
before.
anyone has.
Some people will say, oh, this park or this, building.
Yeah.
You hear the LDS Mormon temple a lot,
Yeah.
obviously. And I agree. When I have family from out of state, I'm not Mormon, but I like to take them down.
I mean,
there
it's
and-
unique to hear.
Sure.
Like I feel like that's
Sure.
got to
You-
be.
you gotta
a
go.
thing,
It's got to be
right?
on the list. You
Yeah,
have to check it
yeah.
off.
But yeah, the aquarium is just. I mean, I'm so impressed with what they did with that place. It's insane good. So
Wow.
Do you have any favorite local eating spots? Like, besides your
man.
chains restaurants or chain fast foods, is there any little mom and pop places that you enjoy eating at?
I don't know if it's local, but do you guys know the Pie Hole downtown?
Oh yeah, that's
Yes.
local. That is delicious.
I mean, that's
pizza.
right across from where I work, so I'm over there a lot of Mondays because they have a special.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun just because it's so unique.
Oh, so you get to work right downtown.
Oh yeah.
That's great.
I'm right across from the library. A lot of times when
man.
I'm needing
Library is
inspiration, I'll
another
just
thing
walk.
people need to go check
The library
out.
is amazing.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of libraries as good as ours in the
Yeah.
country, even. So we have one of the
Yeah, I
best.
wasn't
You
sure.
can go up to the top and see the bees.
yeah.
Like bees up
Yeah.
top.
From my office, when I'm on the 10th floor of the Social Security building, that's kind of kitty corner from that, and I can see the B section from my
Oh, that's
office.
so cool.
You would not believe how often the security guards are up there telling kids to get off the ledge because they're just sitting on the ledge.
Oh, wow.
Oh man, I stressed more about that. Yeah, it's a good view. I mean,
Yeah, Pie Hole is great though. What is
Yeah.
it? The potato bacon.
oh yeah, the potato bacon pie is really good.
My gosh, I used to live right
They
downtown.
have the
and-
Gandalf, which is
Yeah.
the Alfredo. It's the artichoke. Like they
Yeah,
always have something cool
always
there.
good.
You got to try something you've never tried before when you go there.
Anything else you want to ask him, Chrissy, while we have him here? I mean, is there anything else you want to find out about? Anything that maybe we didn't talk about that you would like to bring up?
I want to promote one thing I'm doing.
Oh, absolutely.
Next weekend in the 17th, which is, I guess, the Saturday before Father's Day, both Thomas and I will be at the Pop Culture Con in Pleasant Grove.
Oh.
And we're going to give an hour lecture on working for Disney.
Oh, that's cool.
And our special guest that's joining us is Mark Walton, a former Disney storyboard artist who's the voice of Rhino the hamster in Bolt.
Now, does he live
So
here in Utah?
he lives here, too.
We got to hook me
Oh,
up with
my
him.
gosh.
Bring him
There's
on
a
the
ton
podcast.
of guys.
Yeah, I'd love
Yeah.
to bring more.
Mark's
Disney.
a good friend too. Yeah, he's
So
a great guy.
where's that? That's in Pleasant Grove.
Pleasant Grove. You'll have to look it up online. I'm not sure. I think there's like one convention center down there.
Okay.
So it's
and it's
there.
17th,
next Saturday. So
okay.
It's a convention, so there'll be booths and everything, and we're going to talk, and it's just for
I'll
people
even
who love
try to
pop
look
culture.
that up and promote it even by itself through the Facebook channels, especially since you said you and Thomas.
Yes.
I figure, hey, you both are I Am Salt Lake alumni, right?
Yeah.
People that have been on the pod.
We have the pedigree.
Yeah, absolutely. And chimchum.com is your website,
Yes.
so people can go.
I don't mostly post there, but the links to all my social media are there. So that's the best
where's
way.
the best place for people to connect?
Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
Are the
Like your personal Facebook even.
I have an art of page.
Okay, so you have
my
an art.
Instagram feeds
Okay.
too. Yeah.
And I'll put those links at iamsaltlake.com with this episode's show notes.
Awesome.
So people can connect with you. Check out your Instagram. You got some good stuff up on there as well. I'm not as active on Instagram as I wish I was.
Me neither.
I've gone through phases with Instagram. Do you have a favorite social media? I guess probably one of
The
those.
reason I like Instagram is because it has an option that will automatically post to the other social media.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's true.
I don't have the time to spread the word to all of my fans, but I have gained a modest fan following, and I appreciate all of them, and I want to make sure that they have access to things and they feel that I'm engaging with them. So Instagram tends to be the way that I can do that in one fell swoop.
I like it. Well, I've had a great time.
Me too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having
I
me.
mean, I know we could talk for hours and hours
Yeah,
and
I think we could.
dig your brain and pick your brain and all of that. But maybe we'll have to bring you back on down the road and
Anytime. I'll throw some other people at you too, because there's a lot of interesting Disney artist stories.
You guys all have such interesting stories. I'm excited.
that would be awesome.
Like
So
the climb to Disney.
the client,
Yeah.
very cool. We'll end it there. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Many, many thanks again to Adrian Ropp for coming on this episode. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. All the links to connect will be up on our website with the show notes for this episode at iamsaltlake.com/281 for episode 281. Hey, if you're listening to this podcast before this upcoming Saturday, June 17th, please plan on joining us for an all-day podcast workshop at Salt Lake Community College. This is a free event. We're going to be teaching you how to get your own podcast started. So whether you're at the beginning phases, the advanced stages, the intermediate phases, I'm sure there's something there for all of us.
Yeah, there's like a panel or workshop for kind of anything that you're curious about.
It's going to be starting at 9 a.m., going until 5 o'clock. And I think they're even going to give us a tour of the Salt Lake Community College. I know they have an amazing broadcast facilities there.
Yeah.
And they're going to give us a tour of that. I know Chrissy and I, we're going to be on most of the panels, and we're going to actually be teaching a workshop together.
Yeah. So come with your ideas and laptops, right?
That's what they say. Hey, this is all going to be happening at the South City campus. It's located at 1575 South State Street. It's right across the street, actually, from Watchtower Cafe, where we're going to be doing the live show the night before. I'm not as sure exactly where it's going to be happening, though. So hopefully there's some signs up for this event. Feel free to reach out to us. Drop us a message, an email, Facebook message, whatever, if you want to find out more about the all-day event on June 17th. Hey, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. With 3 locations now, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday 9 to 7, and Sunday 12 to 5. Their brand new 3rd location is all opened up. It's located at 167 East, 900 South, right next to Randy's Records. They also have a location downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. No appointments necessary. Just show up, get a haircut, look good. Maybe you got a last-minute date, a job interview, or maybe you just want to look good for grandma. Head on over to Jed's and get yourself a haircut. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Remember to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't. That way you'll get all the episodes sent right to your favorite podcast player. You won't miss a beat as we continue to introduce you to some amazing people here in Salt Lake City. It's going to be a great week. Get out and enjoy the city. Support local.
And good night, Grammy.